The deep dive is about taking high-stakes, complex information and delivering the core insights, the surprising facts, and the clarity you need to be well-informed.
Today's topic is perhaps the most critical for anyone caring for a young person, pediatric choking. We are diving into foreign body airway obstruction, or FBAO, in children.
And the numbers are, they're just staggering. Choking is a leading cause of accidental death in children under 16.
That's right. And the majority of those victims, tragically, are under 5 years old.
This isn't some slow, visible crisis. It's a swift, silent emergency. It demands immediate action.
Exactly. And that's because the stakes are total. If a child's airway is fully blocked, a lack of oxygen can lead to permanent brain damage or even death in as little as 4 minutes.
4 minutes.
So our mission today is to clearly outline the standard life-saving first aid advice. But then we're going to take the deep dive. We are going to expose the profound scientific uncertainty and even global controversy that underlies every single one of those protocols we teach.
Okay, so we have to start at the foundation, right? Understanding why children are so uniquely vulnerable and what we need to see to recognize an emergency instantly.
It's really a combination of biology and behavior. Children, they naturally explore the world by putting things in their mouths. Food, small objects, everything.
It's just what they do.
It is. But that behavioral risk is amplified because their airways are just so much smaller. They're more easily obstructed. And crucially, their developing muscles mean they often have lower cough-generating forces.
So they can't cough as hard as an adult to clear something.
Precisely. An effective, forceful cough is the body's primary defense. And if they can't produce that force, a blockage can become life-threatening very, very quickly.
Which makes that first step recognition the most critical part. You have to immediately distinguish between, a partial and a complete blockage.
You do, because your intervention changes entirely based on that one assessment. So if the child has a mild obstruction, it means some air is still getting past the object. They'll likely be coughing forcefully, maybe crying, speaking, or making a noisy gasp.
So sound is a good sign.
Sound is a great sign. And if you see those signs, the instruction is a bit counterintuitive. You do not intervene with any physical maneuvers.
Really? You don't do anything?
You stay calm, you encourage them to lean forward, and you let them use that powerful cough to clear the object themselves. Your job is to stay right there and just monitor them closely.
But then there's the other side. Severe obstruction. That's the one that signals a complete or nearly complete blockage. What are the absolute red flags we need to look for?
The number one red flag is silence.
Silence.
They can't cough, they can't cry, they can't speak. They might be grasping at their throat, making these weak, ineffective attempts to cough.
Yeah.
Just desperately struggling for breath.
And then there's the color change, right?
Yes. The most dire sign is cyanosis, a bluish or grayish tint appearing around the lips or the face. That signals severe oxygen deprivation.
So if you see those severe signs, you have to act instantly. What's the immediate sequence?
First, you're confirming it's severe. Then you shout for help. Get someone to call 911, 112, whatever your local emergency number is.
Yeah.
And you do that while simultaneously starting the physical intervention.
What if you're alone?
If you are alone, you start the intervention first. You only pause to call for help if the child becomes unresponsive. There's no time to wait.
Okay, before we get to those specific interventions, let's talk prevention. Because if you remove the hazard, you remove the risk. What are the main categories parents need to eliminate?
We can break it down into a couple of simple groups. For children under 4, the biggest food hazards are anything that's round and firm or anything that's sticky and hard.
Okay, so round and firm. That's things like whole grapes, right?
Yeah.
Chunks of hot dog, raw carrots, or apple chunks. Anything that can form a perfect seal in their small airway.
Exactly. And for sticky and hard, you're thinking of hard candy, chewing gum, popcorn, marshmallows. We should also mention nuts and seeds. They pose a risk not just of choking, but also aspiration, so they should generally be avoided until a child is, say, 7 or older.
Got it. Now moving to household items. Beyond the obvious small toy parts, marbles, and coins, you mentioned two that really deserve a spotlight.
Absolutely. The first is latex balloons. They are incredibly dangerous because if a piece is inhaled, the material can completely conform to the airway, making it almost impossible to remove. This risk actually persists until about age 8.
Wow, age 8. And the other one?
The one we cannot stress enough. Small button-type batteries.
These are everywhere now.
They are. And if swallowed, they are a true chemical emergency. They can cause catastrophic internal burns in the throat or esophagus in just a matter of hours. If you even suspect a battery has been swallowed, you go to the emergency room immediately. Do not wait for symptoms.
And the most important prevention strategy beyond just removing the hazards
It's total vigilance during meals. Children have to eat while sitting down. Never, ever let them run, walk, or play with food in their mouths. So many of these incidents happen when kids are distracted or when an older sibling, unintentionally gives something dangerous to a younger child.
Okay, so now let's get into the physical interventions. We need to establish the protocols that are currently taught because their very clarity, as you said, masks this huge disagreement that we're going to get into.
Right, and the technique used differs entirely based on the child's age. Let's start with infants, so anyone under 1 year old.
And crucially, abdominal thrusts, what most of us call the Heimlich maneuver, are strictly forbidden for infants. Why is that?
It's because of the severe risk of damaging their small, developing internal organs. Their bodies just can't take that kind of focused pressure. So we use external, localized force instead.
And the standard for that is the 5x5 cycle.
Correct. The internationally recognized standard is 5 back blows, followed by 5 chest thrusts.
Okay, can you walk us through the technique? I'm thinking more about the core principles here, not exact measurements that are hard to remember in a crisis.
Of course. The principle is to use gravity and targeted force. For back blows, you position the infant face down along your forearm. The absolute key is making sure the infant's head is lower than their trunk. Gravity is your friend here.
Head down, got it.
You support their head and jaw firmly. Then you deliver 5 firm, sharp blows right between the shoulder blades using the heel of your hand.
And if that doesn't clear the object, you switch to chest thrusts.
Yes. You turn the baby face up onto your opposite forearm, but you keep the head lower than the chest. Use 2 fingers, place them on the center of the chest, just below the nipple line, and you give 5 quick, firm compressions.
And you just repeat that cycle. 5 blows, 5 thrusts.
You repeat that cycle until the blockage clears or help arrives, and you check the mouth after each cycle.
Right. And what's the rule about that? About checking the mouth?
You only remove the object if you can clearly see it and easily grab it. You never, ever perform a blind finger sweep.
Because you could push it in deeper.
Exactly. You risk pushing the obstruction deeper, turning what might be a partial blockage into a complete one.
Okay, so that's infants. Let's transition to children, so anyone age 1 year and older. Abdominal thrusts are forbidden for babies, so why do they suddenly become the primary maneuver for older kids?
It's about development. As a child grows, their ribs become stronger, their internal organs are more protected, and abdominal thrusts become a safer and potentially more effective way to generate that high internal pressure needed to pop out a foreign body.
So for a conscious child over 1, what's the standard recommendation?
Well, many protocols, and we'll get into the many part soon, recommend alternating 5 back blows with 5 abdominal thrusts.
And how do you do those correctly?
You'd stand or kneel behind the child, lean them slightly forward, you make a fist, place the thumb side just above their navel but below the breastbone, grasp that fist with your other hand, and then pull sharply inward and upward, like you're trying to lift them off the ground.
You're trying to create a sudden burst of air from the lungs.
A quick, distinct surge of air to clear the airway. That's the goal.
Okay, and the final escalation, for any age, is if the victim becomes unresponsive.
Then immediate action is required. You lower them to a firm, flat surface. And if you are alone, this is the absolute moment you pause to call for emergency services.
Then you start CPR.
Immediately. You begin CPR. 30 chest compressions, followed by 2 rescue breaths. And the chest compressions themselves are crucial here because they can function like powerful chest thrusts, helping to dislodge the object while also circulating oxygen.
Okay. Let's shift gears now to where we truly dive deep. Everything we just covered. Infants get back blows and chest thrusts. Children get back blows and abdominal thrusts. It all sounds so clear, so simple.
It does.
But you're saying that clarity masks a shocking global disagreement on which technique is actually safest and most effective.
This is the core issue facing emergency medicine in this field. It's a huge problem. Despite the severity of choking, the guidelines are inconsistent because they are based on, frankly, very weak scientific evidence.
Okay, let's start with that inconsistency. We mentioned many global bodies recommend alternating the 5 back blows and 5 abdominal thrusts. Who's in that camp?
Well, you have major groups like the European Resuscitation Council, the ERC, and the International Red Cross. They follow this combined approach. They see alternating the methods as maximizing the chance of success.
But then you have other huge organizations like the American Heart Association, the AHA, which recommends only abdominal thrusts for a conscious child. They skip the back blows entirely.
They do. And that's just 2 sides of the coin.
Yep.
Other groups like the Australian and New Zealand Committee on Resuscitation, or ANCRR, advocate for alternating back blows with chest thrusts, not abdominal thrusts, even for older children.
So they're substituting the Heimlich completely.
Entirely. They're doing it because of really serious concerns about the safety of abdominal thrusts in pediatric patients.
So why does this huge disagreement exist? Why can't the world agree on the single best way to save a choking child?
It all comes down to the evidence problem. The main international body, ILCR, explicitly states that its recommendations in this area are considered weak and are based on data of very low certainty. We just don't have high-quality modern research.
And the reason we like that data is pretty obvious, I guess. You can't exactly run randomized controlled trials on choking kids.
Exactly. Ethical limitations mean we can't intentionally obstruct a child's airway to test different maneuvers. So the evidence we're relying on often consists of decades-old case studies, modeling on mannequins, or data from adult interventions, which just isn't ideal for setting standards for children.
And this whole mess is rooted in historical controversy too, isn't it? With Dr. Henry Heimlich, who popularized the abdominal thrust back in the 70s.
He did. And in doing so, he fiercely advocated against back blows. He called them death blows and claimed they could drive an object deeper.
Wow.
And this assertion, which was often promoted based on unsupported case reports, it led to the widespread adoption of the Heimlich and the abandonment of back blows by some major organizations for decades.
But now it seems like the research is forcing us to question the safety of the very maneuver he championed, especially for a developing child.
And that is the critical risk we need you to understand. Abdominal thrusts create extreme internal pressure. When they're misapplied or used too forcefully on a child, this maneuver carries very serious, documented risks of internal trauma to major organs.
What kind of trauma are we talking about?
We're talking about gastric rupture, severe damage to the heart, lacerations of the liver, rupture of the diaphragm. These are catastrophic injuries, and they've been documented even in children and teens.
That is deeply unsettling, especially given that back blows, the very thing Dr. Heimlich dismissed, they seem to have a much lower risk profile.
Precisely. Recent studies actually suggest that back blows are associated with an improved likelihood of clearing the airway and survival, and they have minimal reported adverse effects. The historical claims against them just haven't been substantiated.
So that disparity in safety and efficacy is why organizations are now pushing away from just doing the Heimlich and are favoring that alternating cycle or even moving to chest thrusts instead.
It is. It's a move toward what's perceived as a potentially safer approach, given the lack of hard evidence.
So if the scientific foundation is this shaky and the established techniques carry these known risks, how do we move forward? What is the future of managing this?
We simply have to fill the research gap. The tragedy here is amplified by recent data suggesting that up to half of FBAO deaths occur with no action taken by bystanders.
No action at all.
None. And that reflects a kind of paralysis, a lack of proficiency, or maybe a lack of confidence in knowing which technique is correct or safe.
That fear of causing harm must just freeze people in that moment.
It absolutely does. So to generate the data we need, experts are now proposing a solution, creating a standardized reporting tool. It's called a pediatric choke list.
A choke list?
Yes, it would require healthcare providers to meticulously document the patient's details, the exact bystander first aid that was given, and the medical outcome. This kind of systematic collection is really the only way we can build a robust, modern database to finally establish the safest global standard.
Are there any non-traditional techniques being looked at? Alternatives?
There are. While encouraging coughing is standard for a partial obstruction, its reliability in kids with low respiratory strength is being questioned. More innovative are the new airway clearance devices.
Suction-based tools.
Exactly. They're suction-based. A recent retrospective analysis reported some pretty promising results, successfully resolving choking in 361 out of 371 patients studied, and over half of those were children. These devices are being explored for use when standard protocols fail.
This has been such a crucial deep dive. It really forces us to look past the simplicity of a first aid poster and into the complexity of the science behind it.
It's messy.
So to summarize the key takeaways, you need extreme vigilance around round foods and small objects, especially those button batteries. You have to recognize the silent signs of severe choking, and you must know that clear separation between the infant techniques, back blows, and chest thrusts only, and the techniques for older children.
Right. But the biggest takeaway is that shocking global disagreement on how to physically intervene safely, which is all due to a reliance on decades-old low-certainty evidence.
But at the end of the day, your actions are the only thing that matters in those first few minutes.
Absolutely. A bystander successfully clearing the airway before medical help arrives is the strongest predictor of survival.
So what does this all mean? Given that foreign body airway obstruction is a leading killer of children, and that the rescue maneuvers we're taught often conflict across continents and carry known risks of internal trauma, should we as caregivers be demanding a global consensus? Should we demand immediate high-quality research to secure the single safest and most effective standard for our children?
The existing science is just insufficient.
So your best move right now is to find a local certified first aid or CPR course. Instruction alone is not a substitute for hands-on certified practice.